Welcome, everyone. Today we have a special guest with us, Brett, aka Touchdown, aka The Toucher. We're doing a complete card review, so you have plenty of time to earn all of your drops today, right here. Starting with Priest. Lunar Wing Messenger, 2 mana, 3/1 Beast. Lifesteal, imbue your hero power.
So I watched a lot of streamers play this during the pre-release brawl, and this was one of the primary imbue cards that priests were playing. And for those that aren't aware, the imbued priest power is basically like a discover option. You can discover various priest cards, and every time that you imbue, the cost of those cards decreases. So eventually, if you imbue enough times, you could get, say, like a 10 mana card for free just by clicking your hero power.
And this is what that hero power looks like. It's 2 mana, Blessing of the Moon. Choose a priest minion or priest spell to add to your hand. It costs 1 less, but is temporary. So it's a temporary card you have to use at that turn. And this one, like Brett was saying, is going to increment each time that you imbue.
What's important to note too is the imbued hero power can discover cards like this, which can imbue your hero power even further. So you don't have to solely rely on cards in your deck to imbue your hero power. You can discover them as well, which eventually just gets your discovered options from your hero power down to essentially free.
This is one of the decks that I tried out during theory crafting, and it doesn't feel like it would be very good for an aggro priest because early on, with the discount being so small, a lot of the cards are unplayable. But if you are a control priest enjoyer, you will really love this hero power because it feels a lot like Galakron Priest, where you get to generate a lot of resources.
Yeah, if we find ourselves in a meta after rotation where value becomes important, I think this priest deck will be like the main value deck that we'll see out there.
I agree. Kaldori Priestess, 4 mana, 4/4, battle cry, give all enemy minions -2 attack until your next turn. Imbue your hero power.
Yeah, this is a bit of a control piece here. You can reduce the attack on, say you're facing an aggro deck, and they got a lot of little tokens on by turn 4 on the board. You play this card, they have 0 attack, they can't attack, and at the same time you're imbuing your hero power. So it's a bit of a control tool in the mid game, which I think could be okay.
It also synergizes well with Blessing of the Moon in case you're able to discover power word spells, where you can give enemy minion that has like 5 attack, negative or -2 attack, make it 3 attack, and then use a spell that destroys a minion with 3 or less attack. Moonwell, 7 mana spell, deal 4 damage to all enemy characters. Restore 4 health to all friendly characters.
Yeah, every time I watched this card in the theory crafting the pre-release brawl, it looked really good. It's a great control tool. It's one-sided, so again, it only attacks your opponents. Whereas some of the control tools we've seen recently from Priest is attacks both sides, like the bomb card. I forget the name of it, where it deals the attack of a minion to its health.
Light Bomb.
Light Bomb, that's the one. So yeah, I think this will be a good card for control priest deck.
I agree. And it's even better if you get to play it double, which we'll see a card that this synergizes with in just a moment. 2 mana shadow spell, Twilight Influence. Choose one. Destroy a minion with 3 or less attack, or summon a random 2-cost minion.
This one I think is one of the better choose one cards that's coming out in this set. As you'll see later on, each class has their own choose one card in this set, and I think this one is one of the better ones.
And it gives you a lot of options, right? It can go offense or defense. So that's really nice that you use one card slot basically for 2 different options. 5 mana, Ritual of the New Moon, arcane spell. Summon 2 random 3-cost minions, or cast 3 spells to summon 6-cost minions instead.
Yeah, this one, I think it would feel really bad to summon the 3-cost minions with this card, but later on, after you've cast some spells, the 6-cost minions would feel a bit better. I don't know, like for me though, I find random 6 costs to be not as good as like 5 costs.
Yeah, there are a lot of battle cry cards that are not statted well because what you want is the battle cry, so it'd feel really bad to summon those. Wish of the New Moon, 3 mana arcane spell, deal 6 damage to a minion, cast 3 spells to gain lifesteal.
I think this will be a decent control tool. Like 6 damage for 3 mana is pretty nicely statted. I think this one will see play.
I agree. And early game, if you don't need the lifesteal, you don't have to worry about casting those 3 spells first. Later in the game, if you've been holding it, you probably already have cast 3 spells, especially with the new priest hero power. So then it becomes even better with that lifesteal. Weaver of the Cycle, 3 mana, 3/3, battle cry. If you're holding a spell that costs 5 or more, deal 3 damage.
This one I don't think we'll see too much play. Like we've seen other cards like this, like 3 mana 3/3s that deal 3 damage before, and like there's the one dragon that the name escapes me that does the same thing, and typically you don't see those type of cards in constructed decks. So I don't think this one will make the cut, but we'll see.
I have gotten the opportunity to play it, and I will say it is pretty easy to have a spell in your hand that costs 5 or more, especially with the hero power. But yeah, it is situational where, you know, if you don't have that spell in hand, it feels bad taking up a slot in your hand. So yeah, we will see if this sees play. Tyrande, 7 mana, 5/7 legendary. Battlecry, the next 3 spells you play cast twice.
So this will feel really good with that card we just reviewed, Moonwell.
Yep.
Because then you get 8 healing on your side of the board and 8 damage on your opponent's side. So it's like 8 damage is basically a board clear for 95% of boards. So I think this will be a good card.
I believe the way it works is that it does 4 damage twice before any enemy death rattles happen or reborns happen. So mostly full clear, and then just have to worry about resummons. But yes, an incredible card. And we'll probably see that in every single control priest. Selenic Drake, 4 mana, 3/6 dragon, elusive. At the end of your turn, get a random dragon.
This minion is decently statted for 4 mana. Like it's a 3/6, so it's probably not gonna die too terribly easily. So you like there's a good shot you'll get at least 2 random dragons out of this thing. Plus it's elusive too, so you can't target it with spells. I think this will be a decent card.
I think so too, especially for people who love dragon decks. This gives you a lot of dragons. Even if it were 3/5, that would be good stats for a 4-drop. So the fact that it's elusive and has that extra health make it just extra spicy. Aviana Elune's Chosen, 9 mana, 7/11, legendary. Battlecry, start a 3 lunar turn cycle. When the full moon rises, your cards cost 1 this game. When I first read this, I thought it said cost 1 less, and I was like, oh, that's okay. But no, they cost 1.
Yeah, this card will be a nice helper if we do have like a value control meta that goes into like the super late game. But to get to 9 mana and then to basically spend an entire turn playing this card and doing nothing else, that'll be tough. Like you'll have to be a head on board for this to see some value. And I've whenever I play, I find like if the card is only good when you're ahead on board, it's not that great, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can see this finding a home in control priest decks and just waiting until your enemy has a slow turn. But it would definitely be difficult to play on curve if your opponent has any kind of board.
That being said, though, like if you discover this off your imbued hero power, and
Oh,
it
yeah.
costs say 1 mana, like a
Especially if it's
1/7
discounted by 9.
like that'll be an easy pick up for the imbued hero power.
Yeah, fantastic discover. Moving on to Death Knight. Nithendra, 7 mana, double unholy, 7/7 undead dragon, legendary. Taunt, Death Rattle, split into 1/1 beetles. At the start of your turn, reform with any remaining.
So this one, I was playing Death Knight in the brawl, But the Death Knight deck that I was playing was 2 Blood Runes and one Undead Rune.
Okay.
But I did find that this was a good discover coming off. Like I was running the Necrotic Morticians, the one that you discover an Undead Rune card if you've had a Undead minion die this turn. And every time I discover this off of those Morticians, it felt really good. It was like a bridge to get to like my 8 mana big plays on turn 8.
Yeah, this would be an amazing discover. And I got a chance to play this during either Brawlsium or Theory Crafting, and it is, you would think that those 1/1 beetles would not stand a chance, but I had one of these come back multiple times, and it was just the gift that kept giving because it kept being a taunt that the enemy had to get through multiple turns in a row. Um, yeah, it's a fun mechanic. I don't think we've seen a card quite like this before.
I really enjoyed playing this card every time I slapped it on the board.
And this is what the little Nithendric beetles look like. They are 1 mana, 1/1 undead beasts. At the start of your turn, combine with any other friendly beetles and reform Nithendra. So adorable. That reminds me of that movie where there were scarabs that ate someone's eyes.
Is that the Mummy?
Yes. Someone made me watch that recently. I'd never seen it before, and then I had nightmares the next couple nights. That's what that card gives me. The scarab beetle vibes.
I love the Mummy back. Like that movie's got to be like 30 years old by this point, but it was
Yeah.
the best comedy / action / horror movie I've ever seen.
The CGI was so bad. Corpse Flower, 3 mana, double unholy, 0/5 undead. After your opponent summons a minion, spend 2 corpses to deal 3 damage to it.
Now this one I think has some potential in an Unholy Rune deck if you're able to generate corpses. When I was playing in the brawl, the one difficulty I found playing like a 2 Blood Rune deck was generating corpses in the early game. By like turn 3, I don't think you'd have enough corpses to really have this thing see much value. But I think if you're able to generate those corpses easily enough on turns 1 and 2, this could be a card you play on turn 3 that could really help you control the board.
Yeah, because a lot of minions that your opponent is playing on their turn 3 or 4 are going to have like 1, 2, or 3 health. So these are automatically they're just going to be obliterated by this cute little flower. Morbid Swarm, a 1 mana blood unholy spell. Choose 1. Summon 2 1/1 ants or spend 2 corpses to deal 4 damage to a minion.
Speaking of corpse generators, I loved playing this on turn 1. Like this, like for like turn 1 plays, this is probably one of the best out there in Hearthstone right now. Just getting 2 little 1/1s on the board on turn 1, it felt so amazing. Getting those corpses out there, being able to slightly have some response to like the aggro decks that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
I rarely use this choose 1 to deal the 4 damage. I always summon the 1/1 ants, basically 99% of the time.
Yeah, I feel like especially on turn 1, that's no choice. You take the 2 ants. If you're like really late in the game and you draw this, maybe dealing the 4 damage situationally. And this is what the little ants look like. 1 mana, 1/1 undead beasts. How cute are those?
Yeah, I also like the fact that they have the double tag of undead and beast. So playing this on turn 1, and then when I played the Necrotic Mortician on turn 2, I was able to get that discover option on turn 2 very consistently.
Rite of Atrocity, 1 mana unholy spell. Discover an undead. Spend 2 corpses to give it a dark gift.
This one is an interesting card. The dark gifts are quite powerful. I think they'll definitely have a spot in constructed decks during this meta. I actually did not run this when I played the brawl because the big problem with the deck that I was playing, being a double Blood Rune card, is generating those corpses. So like I didn't want to bring in cards like this that would consume the corpses that I would much rather use to like for your corpse explosions or those type of cards. But I do think this will find a home in some constructed decks.
I don't know why it would be. Oh! That was so loud. That scared the crap out of me. Oh, Shades, thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. Hope you're having a good day. Welcome. I'm so loud compared to the Discord audio that I like actually jumped. Oh my gosh. I'm crying, chat. I can't. The follower alert was quieter than normal, but it was loud for, yeah, it was loud for me. It was very loud for me. Oh. Whew. Did you clip that? That's hilarious. Yeah, the volume was the volume is really loud. Okay. Because I had to like turn it up a little bit so I could hear I hear what Brett's saying about the cards. Oh my god. Whew. Oh man, I haven't jumped in my seat like that in a minute.
You okay
All
over
right.
there?
Moving on to did we finish Rite of Atrocity? I don't
Yeah,
even remember anymore, Brett. What's going on?
Yeah, I talked about that one while you were doing your audio test, so we can. I think we're good to move on to the next one.
Okay. Oh crap. Okay. Moving on to Sanguine Infestation. Yeah, that was a jump scare for real. Oh, God.
Four mana, draw 2 cards. I was playing this in the Brawl, and it felt really good every time I played it. Especially if we had some husks already on the board when this was played. But just for the draw 2, it was a great card for drawing, and then you get the 2 leeches on top of that, which always felt good.
Did we mention that it's double blood?
Yes, it is a double blood, so you'd have to have your 2 blood runes in order for this to be included in your deck.
And yes, this artwork is adorable, but that poor bear. Monstrous Mosquito, 1 mana, 1/2 beast. At the end of your turn, give your other minions +1 attack.
I like this card if we find out that aggressive Death Knight decks become a thing in the meta. The one thing I don't like about this card is it gives you the +1 at the end of the turn, so you don't get to see that value during your turn. If that being the case, that might be the effect that keeps this card from seeing play. Like if it was like what was that other undead, the 1 mana guy that gives your other undead +1 when you summon them. Like that one sees a lot of play in the aggressive decks. This one might not be the case because it's an end of turn effect.
Yeah, the one thing I don't like about this card is that it's a mosquito.
I hate mosquitoes.
But yeah, I have seen people play this and it is pretty good, even though it's end of turn effect. I mean, if anything, that's better than a battle cry, and I don't know if we have any beginning of turn effects. Except for like auras, maybe for Paladin, like at the beginning or I guess that's a secret. At the beginning of your turn, give all of your minions +1 attack.
I got nothing.
Hideous Husk, 6 mana, blood, 3/5, undead beast. Your leeches steal 2 more health from their victims. Battlecry, summon 2/0/2 leeches. And here's that cute little leech, 1 mana, 0/2 beast. At the end of your turn, your hero steals 1 health from the lowest health enemy.
I am so happy that I opened 2 of these cards for the pre-release brawl because this card is so much fun. So when you summon this thing on turn 6, it brings in the 2 leeches. At the end of the turn, instead of sucking 1 health out of the lowest cost minion, it now sucks 3 health. And this stacks too. So if you have like say 2 husks on the battlefield, instead of 3 health, it sucks 5 health per enemy for the lowest health enemies. So if you get like one of these husks on board and 2, 3, 4 leeches, it can snowball so fast
Yeah.
and provide you with so much health. Like this is probably one of the best cards of this expansion, in my
Well,
opinion.
and it's kind of like snake lock, right? Because it's not just reducing health, it's stealing the health.
Yeah, there's been times some games during the pre-release brawl where I ended the game in like the 50s and 60s when it came to health. Like it snowballs so fast and it's almost impossible to kill you at that point.
Yeah, it's redonkulous. I think this is going to be one of those decks that people love to play and hate to play against. Infested Breath, a 2 mana blood spell. Deal 2 damage, summon a 0/2 leech.
So yeah, this is one of those cards that generate the leeches. This felt really good to play on turn 2. So like there were times where, say, on turn 2, my opponent summoned a 3 health minion. I used this to deal 2 damage to the minion. It has 1 health left. End of turn, the leech sucks that last health out and kills the 3 health minion. It felt really good to play, and yeah, if you can get this going with your husks as well, it snowballs and it's so much fun. It feels so good to play these leech cards.
Yeah, I feel like this is going to be an auto include for any leech deck. Grotesque Runeblade, 2 mana, blood unholy, 2/2 weapon. Battlecry, if the last card you played had an unholy rune, gain +1 attack. Repeat for blood and +1 durability.
So I was playing this card in the brawl, and I didn't mind it. One thing I noticed when I was playing is some other players were actually playing a different weapon, Soulbreaker, which is or Soul Stealer, I can't remember, but it's a 3 mana 3/2 that when you kill a minion, it provides you with 2 corpses, and that was the one problem I had when I was playing is sometimes in the early game I wasn't able to generate those corpses. So it'll be interesting to see whether this card gets slotted in, or if that Soulbreaker card weapon gets slotted in instead. But it does feel good when this weapon becomes a 3/3 instead of a 2/2. Like if when it's a vanilla 2/2, it does not feel that great. But if you're able to get that extra attack or that extra durability, it's a much improved weapon compared to the vanilla 2/2.
Yeah, I agree. Ursak, 9 mana, 6/14 legendary beast. Battlecry, attack all other minions. Death Rattle, resurrect any this killed. And notice it doesn't say all enemy minions, it's all other minions.
This card is the only Death Knight card that I wasn't able to open in the pre-release brawl, and it made me so sad because I really wanted to play this card.
It is a fun card, especially when you need a clear. It's kind of like a Deathwing with benefits. Like you're not having to discard your hand, and you're getting a bunch of minions resummoned. So it's like a Deathwing N'Zoth with benefits, really. Like it's pretty good.
Yep, it's got a lot of good value in it, and depending on the board state, you can also try and manipulate the board before you play this card to have it kill as many as possible
Or
and
kill the ones
have
that
those.
you want to resummon.
Yeah, exactly. And then they once this thing dies, all those minions pop up on your side of the board, and it's basically you have a whole new board that your opponent has to deal with. I think this is going to be a really good card.
Yeah. Moving on to Warlock. Agamagan, 10 mana, 8/9 legendary beast. Battlecry, the next card you play costs your opponent's health instead of mana, up to 10.
Uh, I, it'll be interesting to see if this card sees play. Like it's basically like a free card depending on the board state or and what's in your hand. Like you can play this for 10 mana and still able to play like another really big thing on your turn. So it's kind of a free card. But if you have a deck or if you have a hand that has like, this 10 mana card and then a bunch of, 4 or 5 mana cards, it'll feel much worse playing this card than playing, you know, 2 5-mana cards.
Some people were talking about playing this with Ceaseless. Notice it says up to 10. So you could play this with Ceaseless, but don't expect to be doing more than 10 damage.
Oh, I hadn't considered that. That's a way to cheat out Ceaseless then.
Yep.
That's interesting.
Hungering Ancient, 8 mana, 6/7. At the end of your turn, eat a minion in your deck and gain its stats. Death Rattle, add them to your hand.
Oh, this is interesting to it's kind of like drawing a minion from your deck if you're able to get that death rattle off and have it come back into your hand. Plus you get the added benefit of the stats. The one thing I don't like about this card is that it's not proactive, like it doesn't have rush or anything like that. So you're basically playing like an 8 mana summon a minion that sits there for a turn, and your opponent can have an opportunity to respond to it.
Yeah, it definitely feels like something more for a control deck, and even then it's kind of slow. And what if it gets silenced? Like, what if you eat a bunch of minions from your deck, and then you're playing against Rogue, and they just silence this?
Oh yeah, Deafen has become one of my most hated cards in all of Hearthstone. Every time Rogue plays Deafen, it makes me feel so sad.
Like, I would prefer my opponent to play Elucia. That is how much I hate Deafen. Ugh. Ugh. Rotheart Dryad, 1 mana, 1/1. Death Rattle, draw a minion that costs 7 or more.
Uh, this is interesting because it's card draw with a specific tutor in mind. So if you do have like a big something or other in your deck that you want to get into your hand, like one of the cards that we're going to discuss here in a moment, this will have value in that respect. Yeah, so I think it'll be a decent card to include in decks because card draw is always good.
And it's a solid 1-drop. Archdruid of Thorns, 2 mana, 3/2. Battlecry, gain the death rattles of your minions that died this turn.
So I can't think off the top of my head of any really good death rattles that are in Warlock right now that you'd want to copy with this. So I'm not too sure if this will be the type of card that you'll see played.
It definitely doesn't feel like something you would play on 2. Like, it feels like something you play on 10 or 12 or 14.
Yeah, and that being said, you probably want to be doing other things on turn 10 because this isn't proactive. It's a death rattle, so it's not like it's uh like if it was repeat battle cries or something like that, that would be
Yeah.
very very interesting. But the death rattle aspect, it gives your opponent basically like a turn to respond.
Fractured Power, 2 mana spell. Destroy one of your mana crystals. In 2 turns, gain 2.
So this is basically like this. I would equate this to like an overload card in Shaman, and overload cards do see play in Shaman decks, but you're really handcuffing yourself to for 2 turns. This one, like if you play this on turn 2, then on turn 3 you have 2 mana, and then on turn 4 you have 3 mana, and then on turn 5 you have 7 mana. So like I think on curve this will be not bad, but it'll feel not nearly as good if you don't get it out on curve.
Yeah, I agree. This is one of those cards that you definitely want early or not at all.
Mhm.
Sleep Paralysis, 5 mana shadow spell. Choose one. Summon 2/3/6 demons with taunt that can't attack or destroy an enemy minion.
This is one of the choose one cards that I'm not a big fan of. Like three sixes that can't attack. That might be okay in like a control deck. but like 5 mana destroy a minion, like that's not nearly as good as was it Siphon Soul? Now that Siphon Soul's down to 4 mana and does some health, some lifesteal to it as well. But yeah, the 2/3/6 demons, that might be okay.
I might be okay is a lot of what ifs. Feel like we're not going to see a lot of this.
No, I don't think so.
Wallow the Wretched, 7 mana 6/6 legendary. While this is in your hand or deck, it gains a copy of every dark gift you've given your minions.
So those dark gifts can add up quickly, and there are dark gifts that have charge, that have Wind Fury, and can also increase the stats. Like there's a one dark gift that's like +4/+5, another one that's like +2/+2. So when you play this for 7 mana, you're not getting a vanilla 6/6. You're getting, a 7 mana, could be like a 12/14 charge with Wind Fury. So it's something that could basically end the game OTK style,
Mm-hmm.
depending on how many gifts you've been playing so far.
Yeah, let's take a look at all the dark gifts that it's possible for Wallow to receive. Walking Terror is +3 attack and lifesteal. Well Rested, +2/+2 and elusive. Short Claws costs 2 less but has 2 fewer attack. Bundled Up, +4 health and taunt. Living Nightmare, when you play this minion, summon a 2/2 copy of it. Sleepwalker, charge. Rude Awakening, this minion's battle cries trigger twice. Sweet Dreams, +4/+5, place this card on the top of your deck. Persisting Horror, Reborn, is reborn with full health and enchantments. Harpy's Talons, Divine Shield, and Wind Fury. And RG pointed out yesterday that he noticed about Wallow, if in hand, don't pick the gift that puts a minion on top of your deck, because that will lose all the other dark gifts that it received.
Oh, that's interesting. So like when you pick that dark gift
Don't
for
pick Sweet Dreams.
so does this when you pick that dark gift for another minion and you have Wallow in hand, does it send Wallow to the top of your deck?
It sounds like it would. We'll have to check that for science, but it sounds as though the mechanic of putting it back on your deck does something to the dark gifts.
Oh, that's interesting because that effect happens whenever you take another card, like say you take a card that's been hand buffed in your hand and it gets sent back into your deck somehow. It always loses the hand buff, so maybe that's
Exactly.
a similar effect to this.
Which, it doesn't seem like that would happen with Wallow because it says in your hand or deck. But I guess when you're sending it back to the top of your deck, now it's in the Twilight Zone. So that's where something funky happens.
Interesting.
So just something to beware of and be careful about. Rotten Apple, 2 mana spell. Restore 12 health to your hero. For the next 2 turns, deal 3 damage to your hero.
This one could be interesting. Like I think honestly, this will probably see more play in Wild in the quest line decks more so than in Standard, because there's in Standard right now there's not really any synergy with dealing self damage right now. But yeah, in Wild, like I could see this being played in the quest line deck for sure.
Yeah, definitely with questline. Seems pretty good. Plus, I mean, dealing 3 to your hero over the next 2 turns, you're only dealing 6. So you're still netting 6.
Mm.
Avant Gardening. I love that. 2 mana spell. Discover a Death Rattle minion with a dark gift.
Yeah, this I think will be a good card. It's a dark gift card that you could use to not only discover a minion but add to your Wallow the Wretched. I think this will see play.
Especially if you can get the Reborn Dark Gift, because then you're getting a Death Rattle with Reborn.
Yeah, that would feel really good.
Overgrown Horror, 5 mana 4/6, Taunt. Battlecry, reduce the cost of minions in your hand with Dark Gifts by 2.
Well, Mana Cheat is always good. Taunt is always good. I think this will be a good card.
I lost you, Brett.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Oh, I just couldn't hear you over the sound alert. Are you done talking about the card?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay. Also, hi, thanks for joining.
Hello.
Moving on to Mage. Wanzu, 3 mana 3/4 beast. Battlecry, discover a spell, choose to keep it or put it on top of your opponent's deck.
As far as legendary minions go, this is kind of underwhelming, but like a 3 mana 3/4 discover a spell. Um, it's like that's not terrible. That's a pretty decent effect. I don't think you'll ever have a scenario where you'll want to put it on top of your opponent's deck unless it's like all three of your options are complete garbage. But yeah, like a 3 mana 3/4 discover a spell. That's a decent card.
I mean, putting a card on top of your opponent's deck is a classic disruption move. And we have other cards currently that do the same thing, that like put a spell on the top of your opponent's deck at the start of every turn or at the end of every turn. So I can see it being used that way. If you don't like what your options are, just choose the worst spell to disrupt your opponent. Stellar Balance, 2 mana arcane spell. Get a Moonfire and a Starfire. Give them spell damage +1. And I just want to point out, Moonfire and Starfire are Druid spells.
I'm really glad that Sif is rotating.
This would be nuts with that.
Yeah.
Oh, it will be in Wild.
Yeah. So this card, like, it's a good card. I'm not too sure what type of deck in standard you'll see this in, because the imbue. We'll talk about the imbued hero power for mage in a moment, but this one doesn't really have synergy with the imbue stuff. So we'll see what direction mage wants to go as a class for this next expansion here.
1 mana Spark of Life. Choose one spell. Discover a mage spell or discover a druid spell.
Yeah, I like this card. It's 1 mana, discover a spell. Um, it's a good option to have in your deck. Discover is always good.
And it's a solid turn 1.
Yep.
Or, even if you draw it later, it's a cheap situational. Forbidden Shrine, a 1 mana 3 durability location. Spend all your mana, cast a random spell that costs that much.
So I'd have to look at the spell lists for standard to see if you want to tutor a specific spell. Like I would think that you'd want to like be in a situation where you have like 8, 9, 10 mana left
Mm-hmm.
on your side for your turn, and then you click this button to see what you get. Uh, but yeah, it would be very dependent on what the spell list is for standard. You 100% would not play this on one and then click the button on turn two and see what happens, because you could end up with just essentially skipping your turn.
Yeah, I think this is a turn 9 or 10 for sure. Star Surge, 3 mana arcane spell. Deal 1 damage to a minion, improved by each friendly minion that died this game. And you might be thinking, how is Mage going to have that many minions? We'll see in a moment.
Yeah, this will be like this would be a nice discover option, but I don't know if you want to spend 2 slots in your deck, filling it with this card. Because it's important to note too that this is damage to a like if this was damage that could go face, that's an entirely different story.
If this were damage that could go face, it would already be nerfed before the expansion drops.
Yeah, get the Raza resealed effect.
Oh, too funny. Ascena, 8 mana, 6/8 undead legendary. Battle cry: if 20 friendly minions have died this game, deal 20 damage split among all enemies. Does that sound familiar? This feels like a new Astalor.
Yeah, Astalor, Cthulhu. There's a lot of cards that we've seen that if it's deal friendly or deal 20 damage, 30 damage, whatever it is, they've always seen lots of play. So this will be a good card.
Divination, 2 mana arcane spell. Destroy a friendly wisp to draw 3 cards. And the wisp is a 0 mana 1/1 undead.
So I guess to put it into context, I was hoping we'd come across an imbue card by now, so we could talk about the imbued hero power for Mage. But the imbued hero power for Mage is basically a wisp generator where you can fill your board with wisps. So this is 2 mana draw 3 is always that's really well statted. Like Arcane Intellect, eat your heart out at this point in standard. This will be a good card.
Here is the Blessing of the Wisp 2 mana hero power. Summon 1 wisp, deal 1 damage, randomly split among all enemies. And you might be wondering, how does 1 damage get split among all enemies? The ones here increment just like our other imbue hero powers. So if you imbue once, you'll summon 2 wisps, deal 2 damage. Imbue twice, you'll summon 3 wisps, deal 3 damage, split among all enemies. So you keep imbuing, and eventually you have a lot of wisps and a lot of damage.
So yeah, like you're gonna have a wisp on your board, basically guaranteed at any point in the game. So yeah, this is like straight up vanilla, 2 mana, draw 3 cards.
Merry Moonkin, 4 mana 3/6. At the end of your turn, gain 1 armor. Repeat for each wisp you control.
So if you have Moonkin on board and the 6 other spots are filled up with wisps, that's 7 armor. You get that initial armor gain of 1 plus 1 for each additional wisp, so a total of 7. This could be a good tool to stay alive. Yeah, I think this will be a decent. It has good synergies with the imbued hero power, so I think this will be included in like the imbued mage decks.
Wisp Rider, 5 mana 4/4. Battle cry: imbue your hero power, then trigger it.
Let's say by turn 5 you've imbued a couple of times. Let's say 3 times. So then this would be a 5 mana 4/4, summon an additional 3 wisps and deal 3 damage to enemies. So like this will be it's an imbue card, so it'll be included. But the battle cry I think it'll be really strong.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of cards that imbue, but not a lot that also trigger the hero power. So this is pretty strong. Spirit Gatherer, 2 mana 2/1. Battle cry: get a wisp. Imbue your hero power.
Yeah, so it's an imbue card, so it'll see play in imbue decks. But beyond that, if there's like any other decks in standard that probably won't include this card.
What's interesting to note is it doesn't summon a wisp. It puts it into your hand.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because it says get.
And it's 0 mana, so you could play it right away. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I
Or
kind of
if
like
you
that
have a
better.
full board, if you're playing it later, it gives you the option to hold that wisp and play it like with the armor minion or when you have space.
Yep, and to play this on turn 2, it's 2 mana, summon a 2/1, and effectively a 1/1 because the Wisp is 0 mana. So like this will be a decent turn 2 play.
Moving on to Paladin. Renewing Flames, 7 mana nature spell, Life Steal. Deal 5 damage to the lowest health enemy twice.
So this card, in and of itself, I think is going to be a really strong card. If you combine it with the Wild God that we're going to talk about here in a second, this will be an amazing card.
And something to note is that the 5 damage twice occurs before Reborn. So if your opponent has a Reborn minion on the board as their only minion, and they only have 5 health left themselves, this is lethal. As long as that Reborn minion has 5 or less health. Because it'll do 5 damage to the minion, then 5 damage to the enemy hero, and then their Reborn will resummon. I think.
Good to know.
Because I ran into that situation and that I was not expecting it to be lethal, and it was.
Yeah, I would have expected the Reborn to come in and then damage the Reborn. Oh, that's good. That's really good to know.
Mark of Ursul, 2 mana spell. Choose a minion. If it's an enemy, set its stats to 1/1. If it's friendly, set its stats to 3/3 instead.
I kind of like this card because it's a bit of a control tool if you have like a really big enemy minion later in the game. But at the same time, like if it's early game, you play a 1/1 on turn 1, and then turn 2 you play this card, you turn your 1/1 into a 3/3. That's a pretty strong play as well. I think this will be a good card.
Yeah, any card that you can play offense or defense, it seems like a solid add to your deck.
Absolutely.
Ursul, 8 mana, 9/7 legendary beast. Battlecry, cast the highest cost spell from your hand as an aura that lasts 3 turns. And this is Ursul's aura, 1 mana holy spell. At the end of your turn, cast another card, lasts 3 turns.
Yeah, so imagine combining this with Renewing Flames that we just talked about.
So
Renewing Flames would be an aura that triggers 3 times. Like that's amazing. Like that's basically lethal, a lethal aura if your opponent doesn't have any minions on board.
Yeah, that's GG.
Yeah, amazing card.
Ursine Maul, 4 mana, 4/2 weapon. After your hero attacks, draw your highest cost card.
Yeah, so this is a wonderful tutor. Like it's 4 mana 4/2, which we have seen play in Paladin decks before, but to effectively draw 2 cards on top of having a 4/2 weapon, I think will be really good, and it'll probably draw your Ursul, which will then you could play your Ursul, and then which will trigger your Renewing Flames as an aura. Like there's a lot of really good synergies with this Paladin set coming out. I like it.
I do too, and I just want to mention this is one of my favorite card arts from the entire expansion. If I had a coffee shop or a bookstore, this is the weapon that I would be mounting above the mantle so that everyone can admire how beautiful it is when they're having their morning coffee or choosing their next cozy read. It's pretty. Dream Warden, 4 mana, 3/4 dragon, taunt, battle cry. If there is a card in your deck that did not start there, draw it and gain +2/+2.
Well, as we're going to see here pretty quick regarding the imbued hero power for Paladin, it'll be very easy to get cards into your deck that didn't start there. So effectively, this will be a 4 mana 5/6 with taunt, which is a pretty decently statted minion.
And it helps tutor out the cards that we're going to be shuffling.
Yep.
Let's see if we can see that right now. Here is Blessing of the Dragon, the new hero power, 2 mana, shuffle 2 emerald portals into your deck. Your portals summon 1 cost dragons, and just like the other imbue hero powers, that one increments. So eventually it will summon 2 cost dragons, 3 cost dragons, 4 cost dragons, etc.
And the portals that you've already shuffled into your deck, those get upgraded with every imbue as well. So it's not like you're going to summon a 1 mana dragon after imbuing your hero power a bunch of times. Like every portal gets that upgrade. And I ran into this in the brawl, and it was very annoying in the late game to have all these random high mana minions pop onto the board out of nowhere. It was very difficult to deal with.
Yeah, it seems very strong and like it could snowball quickly.
One thing
Dragon
I found,
Scale Armaments, 1 mana holy spell. Draw a spell that started in your deck and one that did not.
yeah, so this will work really well with the hero power. I don't think you want to play this in the early game, but later in the game when you have all these high mana portals in your deck, it's basically 1 mana summon a large dragon, which I
Yeah.
think is strong.
And draw a card.
Uh,
Can you imagine? 1 mana
yeah,
isn't enough to just draw a card. You also get a huge dragon on board.
yeah. Oh, that's
The
so yeah.
mana,
Late
the
game,
mana cheat.
yeah, and if even if your deck is empty later in the game, you click your hero power once, 2 portals get shuffled in, you play this card, it draws one of them, and you have a giant dragon on your board. So I think this will be a good card. Like I'd even consider running this in like a non imbue deck because it's still 1 mana draw card.
It's still strong at that. Aegis of Light, 1 mana holy spell. Summon a random 1 cost minion and give it taunt. Imbue your hero power.
Yeah, like very strong card. I'm just thinking of like 1 drops in standard. Like you're probably going to get like a 1/2 and give it taunt or something to that effect. Sometimes a 1/3, maybe a 2/2. So for 1 mana, you get that minion plus the imbue to your hero power. I think this will be a very good card.
Yeah, this is an auto include for Paladin imbue. I mean, even if it were just 1 mana summon a random 1 drop, that would be good. The fact that it also imbues makes it great.
Yeah, like it also makes me wonder in wild if you see like imbued paladin decks in wild, like like when would you ever want to click your hero power in wild and just summon a 1/1 other than like maybe like a dude paladin deck in wild. But other than that, like getting those upgraded hero power would just be decent in my
Hmm.
opinion.
Gold Petal Drake, 3 mana, 3/4 dragon, Battle Cry and Death Rattle. Imbue your hero power.
Yeah, it's a 3 mana 3/4, so like it's good statted for a minion, and you get the battle cry and the death rattle, so imbue twice. Like I think that's just a strong card, and it's not the kind of card that you want to deafen um, when if you have like a silence effect. Like you're not probably gonna have that focus on this particular card, so you're probably gonna see the death rattle come off 9 times out of 10. But I think it'll be very strong.
Yeah. Especially if you can get a dark gift on this that gives it reborn.
Oh yeah, that'll be very strong.
Torith the Unbreaking, 5 mana, 3/4 legendary. Divine Shield, taunt. Your divine shields take 3 hits to break.
That is a really strong effect unless your opponent has leeches on board. So there was a few times when I was in the brawl and I would play my leeches, and that was the easiest way to get through this guy is because the leech effect goes through the divine shield and basically reduces the minion to zero health, and then just kills it. Other than that, it's a very strong effect to be able to. You have to attack into this 3 times before the Divine Shield breaks.
Yeah, the only way I can see this being okay against a Leech DK is if you play it not on 5, so that you can get other minions out on board that have less health, or if you discover this with a Dark Gift that gives it more health. Because otherwise, yes, it is very easy to clear with leeches. But it's going to be a pain for everything else.
And this is an aura effect too. So if you have other Divine Shields on board, those other Divine Shields will also require 3 hits to break.
Yep. Lightmender, 4 mana, 3/3. Taunt. Choose one. +3 attack and Divine Shield, or +3 health and lifesteal.
Yeah, I like this card. I'm just thinking the +3 health and lifesteal would be very annoying because it's a 4 mana 3/6 lifesteal. Like you're probably gonna take at least 2 hits to get that cleared, so that's 6 additional health. I think it'll be a decent card.
Moving on to Rogue. Harbinger of the Blighted, 2 mana, 2/3. Whenever this enters your hand from the battlefield, summon 2 random 2-cost minions.
I came across this in the Brawl a couple times, and it's a very strong card to play on turn 2 because you could like play this on turn 2, Shadow Step it, summon those other 2 minions, and then replay this for 0 mana. The one thing I'm not convinced about Rogue is I don't think the set's too terribly strong because like it's a very strong effect if you're going to be an aggressive Rogue deck, but I don't think it has this, or I don't think Rogue has the support necessary to be an aggressive deck right now.
Yeah, I did play a free-to-play aggro rogue deck that Donkey made, and it felt great. But it seems as though there are going to be so many like tempo and control decks that it's going to be difficult to make aggro rogue super viable, except probably at like high legend.
Yeah, I'm sure some of those players like Jay Alex and Robert J at High Legend will find a way to make something like this work.
Web of Deception, 2 mana spell. Return a friendly minion to your hand to summon a 4/4 spider with stealth. Here's our Skittering Spiderling, 4 mana, 4/4 beast, stealth.
Yeah, so as long as you have a minion on board, you play this on the minion, you get a 4/4 stealth. That's pretty strong for 2 mana. Yeah, let's see how good these aggressive rogue decks are going to be. The strength of the card will kind of be dependent on those type of decks.
This synergizes so well with Harbinger because if you have a prep, you Harbinger, prep, Web of Deception, and then because this has gone back to your hand using Web, you get the 2 random 2/2s, plus you get a 4/4 with stealth. It's a really strong early game.
Oh yeah, or you could like a coin, play Harbinger, Shadow Step it, play it again, and then prep the web, and all of a sudden on turn 1 you have 1, 2, 3,
And it works
4
even
minions.
more nicely with Twisted Web Weaver because then you get your hand refill. 1 mana, 1/3 beast. Whenever you play another minion you've already played, draw a card.
I think this will find a home somewhere in some sort of rogue deck because card like this is really cheap card draw, and rogue decks typically like really cheap card draw.
Yes. And we know Rogue loves Shadow Step, so there will definitely be a way to draw cards with this. Renferal the Malignant, 3 mana, 3/3 beast. Battlecry, trap 1 random card in your opponent's hand for a turn. improved for each time you've played this.
Yeah, I've had that play against me a couple times, and it's very annoying after like if you've summoned this thing 2-3 times to be able to like have your whole hand handcuffed so you can't play it. That gets really annoying.
Yeah, I feel like this is going to be one of those hated cards.
Yep.
And did they name it Renfrel just that it sounds like Renethal? Because so many people hated that too. Tricky Satyr, 3 mana 4/3 demon. Battle cry, get a copy of the lowest cost card in your opponent's hand.
Sounds like you're getting a snake oil. Or no, snake oil is rotating. Never mind. Yeah, it's I think this will be a good card for Thief Rogue decks. Any way to get cards into your hand that didn't start in your class, I think would be pretty decent.
And
But
Rogue loves cheap cards for combo.
that is very true.
Nightmare Fuel, 1 mana spell. Discover a copy of a minion in your opponent's deck. Combo with a dark gift.
Yeah, dark gifts are I think going to be very strong. So 1 mana, discover a minion and give it a dark gift. Like that's going to be a really good card, I think.
I agree. Mimicry, 1 mana spell. Your opponent draws 2 cards. You get copies of them.
This would be interesting to try and mill your opponent more than anything. Like if your opponent has a full hand or close to full hand, you could burn a couple of key cards. I think this card might see some play from that respect. Plus, it's card draw. It's good for Thief Rogue. I think this is a decent card.
I agree. This is an excellent mill. Shadow Cloaked Assailant, 4 mana, 3/5 demon. Battle cry, if you're holding one of the same cards as your opponent, shuffle theirs into their deck.
Yeah, this could be interesting depending on how many copied cards you have. Because, like, say if you have 5 cards that you've copied from your opponent, you play this, you could basically destroy their entire hand, or like remove their entire hand back into their deck. Like that could get really annoying for your opponent.
Yeah. Ashamain, 9 mana, 7/7 beast. Legendary. Battle cry, fill your hand with copies of cards from your opponent's deck. They cost 3 less.
So one important thing to note about this is, say for example, your opponent only has 1 card remaining in their deck, you will effectively get multiple copies of that specific card. I was watching a streamer in the brawl the other day. They played this card and they filled their hand with snake oils. It was absolutely hilarious.
What? Oh, that's unexpected. All right.
Yep.
I guess it does say fill your hand.
Yep.
That's very interesting. This makes so much more sense because yesterday in Brawlzium, I was wondering how my opponent, who is a rogue, got 3 of my paladin weapons. That answers that question. Huh. But yeah, the fact that they're discounted, it has like Elucia vibes. You're getting copies of cards from your opponent's deck. They cost less though, so that's even better. Um, Seems good. Barbed Thorn, 3 mana, 1/3 weapon. Choose one. Gain poisonous this turn, or gain death rattle, deal 2 damage to all enemies.
I think this is a not bad card. If you choose the poisonous option, it's a way to eliminate a big threat potentially. The death rattle is also pretty decent. Although there's 3 durability on this weapon, so you'd have to time the death rattle specifically.
Uh-huh.
So that might not be as good because then your opponent can kind of play around it.
Yeah, it feels very slow for the death rattle option. and it's not a lot of death rattle damage. The poison is good. It seems like it could be really good against the new Tortollan untargetable 130 taunt.
Oh yeah, that would feel really bad if you just played the
But that's,
Tortollan.
I mean, that's so situational. Rogue has so many weapons. I'm not sure how much we're going to see this.
Yeah, I agree. I can't really see it seeing too much play.
Hunter, Mythical Runebearer, 4 mana, 3/4 beast, taunt, battle cry. If this has 4 or more attack, summon a copy of this.
Every time I hear the name, if you've ever watched How I Met Your Mother, the TV show, I think of when Barney says ring bear.
When does Barney say Runebearer?
So he says ring bear because he wants to have a ring bear at his wedding, and everyone tries to correct him. Be like, "Do you mean ring bearer?" He's like,
Wait,
ring bear.
Barney got married?
Yeah, in the final season.
What did that? What? How do I not remember that?
Oh, you have to rewatch it.
The
It's the
last thing I
episode.
remember was Robin and Barney dating, and that did not go great.
Yeah, you should watch the final season then, because the entire final season is basically about Barney's wedding, and one of the episodes is like entirely focused on the joke around ring bear versus ring bearer.
That's
It's
so
hilarious.
funny. It's okay to say bad things about cards. That card is terrible. Are you talking about the weapon? Say how you really feel. Jammies.
So back to Hearthstone.
Back to
Uh,
Hearthstone, yes.
so this card will synergize quite well with the imbued hero power for Hunter. It'll be very easy to get this minion's attack up to and above 4, so you'll be able to summon 2 of these taunt minions very easily. So I like it.
I wouldn't say very easily. I have played a lot of Mythical Runebear already, and somehow the hero power did not hit it. Like it stayed in
Oh,
my hand for a long time.
that's funny.
Ugh. Never Runebear. Let's take a look at the imbue. Here's the new hero power, 2 mana, Blessing of the Wolf. Give a random beast in your hand +1 attack. It costs 1 less, and just like our other imbue cards or our other imbue hero powers, it increments every time you imbue. So after the first imbue, your beast will get +2 attack and will cost 2 less, +3 attack, 3 less, +4 attack, 4 less, etc.
That's a neat battle cry. I like that.
Verdant Dreamsaber, 5 mana, 4/7 beast, battle cry. If this costs 3 or less, attack 2 random enemy minions.
That's a cool effect. That's a because I'm sure there'll be a way to get this down below 3 mana, and with the hero power. So to have this battle cry attack 2 minions, it's very proactive. It could help clear the opponent's board, and it's got a lot of health too. So like I could see this not dying when attacking into the first minion. So
Uh-huh.
you're pretty much guaranteed getting 2 hits out of it.
Yeah, that was a problem that I had with Verdant Dreamsaber is it 50-50'd the wrong way. It
Oh
only took
no.
out 1 minion, so you definitely can't rely on it unless you've buffed it enough to survive. Exotic Houndmaster, 2 mana, 2/2, battle cry, draw a beast, imbue your hero power.
Yeah, drawing a card, like it's 2 mana 2/2 that draws a card and also imbues your hero power. Like that's doing a lot of work for 2 mana in my opinion.
Super
And so
strong, power creep, all the memes.
yep.
Spirit Bond, 3 mana nature spell, deal 3 damage to a minion. If that kills it, summon a 3/2 wolf with rush.
Yeah, that's a pretty strong effect for 3 mana. And you can get so you should be able to get the wolf out which also has rush, so you can attack into something immediately with it. Like there's a lot of value there for 3 mana.
Here is Playful Pup, 2 mana, 3/2 Undead Beast with Rush. Yeah, this is very strong. Amphibian Spirit, 2 mana nature spell. Give a minion +2/+2 and Death Rattle. Give a friendly minion +2/+2 and this Death Rattle. Feels a lot like the hat.
Yes, it's a replacement because the hat's rotating, is it not?
Yes. I think that was part of Badlands. Oh.
Badlands. I think it was Badlands.
Was it Badlands?
Yeah, so it'll still be a good replacement for it. That'll be a very annoying death rattle.
I agree. I don't know how much we'll see it though, because there's so many other good hunter cards right now.
Yep.
Broll Bear Mantle, 5 mana, 3/5 legendary. After you cast a spell, summon a random animal companion. And though I'm sure we all know what they are, you could summon Huffer, 3 mana, 4/2 beast with charge. Leok, 3 mana, 2/4 beast that gives other minions +1 attack. Or Misha, 3 mana, 4/4 beast with taunt.
Yeah, just summon a bunch of Hoffers that go face and win the game. It's that easy, right?
Always Huffer. Shepherd's Crook, 3 mana, 3/2 weapon. After your hero attacks, summon a 3/3 sheep that's dormant for 2 turns. Here is the Sleepy Sheep. 2 mana, 3/3 beast, dormant for 2 turns.
Yeah, I wonder why they picked dormant for 2 turns. Like, as far as weapons go, I think there's much better options out there for hunter right now. So this might not be the best weapon to include in a hunter deck.
Yeah, it feels kind of slow.
Yeah, I agree.
Goldrin, 9 mana, 9/9 legendary beast. Rush. Friendly beasts deal double damage.
This feels like an OTK with like a king plush or a charge or something like that.
And it's really strong. It's a good way of getting rid of that 130 taunt untargetable. Because now if you have a minion that does 15 damage and it's a beast, Goldrin gives it 30 damage instead of 15. If there are no taunts in the way, you get to do a lot of smork. It's a good boy.
Good boy.
Grace of the Great Wolf, 4 mana spell. Choose one. Deal 4 damage to the enemy hero, or summon 2 3/2 wolves with rush.
Like those are both really good options. Like if you want to just go face and deal 4 to win the game, you can. The 3/2 wolves with rush, that's also very proactive. Like this is probably one of the better choose one cards that we're seeing this expansion.
Mm-hmm. And it feels well statted.
Yep.
Umbra Claw, 4 mana, 5/2 beast. Rush, Death Rattle, imbue your hero power.
That's a good death rattle to have with the stats of this thing. Like a 5/2 is probably gonna kill an opposing minion and will also probably get killed itself to imbue the hero power. So I think this is like the stats with the rush and all that stuff. I think will fit together quite nicely for this card.
And normally a card like this might feel kind of bad if you draw it later, but with the imbue hero power, if you give it more stats, it has the potential to remove an even larger enemy off the board. Moving on to Demon Hunter, Dread Soul Corruptor, 4 mana, 4/4, Battle Cry, and Death Rattle. Summon a random dormant Dread Seed. Here are the Dread Seeds. 2 mana, 4/4 Undead Beast, dormant for 2 turns. When this awakens, give your hero +3 attack this turn. Crow Dreadseed, 1 mana 3/3 Undead Beast, elusive, dormant for 1 turn. And Serpent Dreadseed, 3 mana 5/5 Undead Beast, taunt, lifesteal, dormant for 3 turns.
These remind me of the wild seeds that we saw in Hunter a couple of years ago, and these all seem like very good minions. I like the taunt lifesteal. That one's probably my favorite of the three because you get some pretty decent stats on the board. Eventually, it does take a couple turns to get there, but I think these Dread Seeds will see play.
Grim Harvest, 2 mana spell, draw a card, summon a random dormant Dreadseed.
Yep, another solid Dreadseed card. If Dreadseeds become a thing, we'll see this card in Dreadseed decks.
Yeah, even if it were just draw a card, like that's not, it's kind of not great for 2 mana, but the fact that you're either getting a free 2-drop, 1-drop, or 3-drop makes it kind of spicy.
Yep, I like it.
Wyvern's Slumber, 3 mana spell, choose 1, summon 2 dormant Dreadseeds, or deal 2 damage to all minions.
I like the options there. If your opponent has a bunch of tokens on their side of the board, you can wipe out their side or just summon the 2 Dread Seeds. Either option is decent, I think.
Alliestrasza, 5 mana, 5/5 Demon Beast, legendary. Battlecry, transform minions in your hand into random demons. They keep their original stats and cost.
When I was playing Kill Jaden decks in the brawl, it felt so bad to have this thing come out of the portal because then it would transform. Like if you're holding on to like a Ceaseless in your hand, it'll transform the Ceaseless or like some good cards that you want to keep as themselves. Like you don't want the random demon effect to come into play. But so yeah, I'm not a big fan of this card.
Yeah, it feels kind of bad. I don't see this seeing a lot of play. Defiled Spear, 4 mana 2/3 weapon. After your hero attacks an enemy, deal your hero's attack damage to another random enemy.
Yeah, I think there's so many other things you could be doing for 4 mana in Demon Hunter. Like I don't think this will be a card you'll be wanting to play on turn 4.
Ferocious Fellbat, 7 mana 7/5 demon. Death Rattle, resurrect a different friendly Death Rattle minion that costs 5 or more. Summon a copy of it.
Okay, so this is something that I saw kind of snowball in some of the brawls I was watching over the past couple days. So you know the starship piece, the taunt with the death rattle, give your hero armor.
Uh-huh.
So you play that on turn 4, and then on turn 5, there's another card in this expansion. If you go to the next one real quick, it's called Ravenous Fellhunter. It has a death rattle. Resurrect a friendly death rattle minion that costs 4 or less. Summon a copy of it. So after you've had your starship piece die, you play the 5 mana card. When that dies, it summons 2 starship pieces. And then after Ravenous Fellhunter dies, you play Ferocious Fellbat, which summons more Fellhunters, which summon more starship pieces. So eventually you build up a starship that has like 8, 9, 10 of these starship pieces in it. And then one thing I saw in the brawl with that was really effective is you play Ceaseless because you've had so many minions die. It clears the board. Then you use the what's the one starship piece? The 6/8, the 7 mana 6/8.
Exodar?
Exodar, yeah. So you play that, and the option you choose is deal the starship's attack to random enemies, and you basically OTK your opponent because your starship has like 30 plus health because so many of these little starship pieces have died over the course of the game.
That is disgusting.
It was really powerful when I watched people play it.
Uh, so that is one way to go if you want to go Starship Fellbat OTK. But we'll see there's another Demon Hunter card coming up that does cost 5 or more. That would be pretty juicy to resummon with a copy. And we'll get to that in just a moment. Ravenous Fell Hunter, 5 mana, 5/3 demon, Death Rattle, resurrect a friendly Death Rattle minion that costs 4 or less, summon a copy of it.
Yeah. So step one, you play your starship piece or whatever other death rattle you, and then step two, you play this, and it summons more of those death rattles, and then after this thing dies, that's where your Fellbat comes into play. It'll summon more of these guys, or like you had mentioned, the other death rattle we're going to discuss.
Jump Scare, 2 mana spell. Discover a demon that costs 5 or more with a dark gift. Shuffle the other 2 into your deck.
So this is I saw this being comboed with the Ferocious Fellbat and the Ravenous Fell Hunter to just generate more and more of those starship pieces.
Wow. So here's your other option for a juicy death rattle that costs 5 or more. Omen, 10 mana, 6/12, Demon Beast, legendary. Resh, Wind Fury. Death Rattle, deal 1 damage to all enemies, improves after this attacks.
So it's probably going to be very easy to get this up to the 3 damage to all enemies, because this will rush into something, probably not die because it's got a lot of health, and rush into something else. That being said, like 3 damage to all enemies for 10 mana isn't that great,
But
especially
I
if this
mean,
thing
it's
does.
3 damage after you've already probably killed 2 minions with it.
That's true, but you also have to make sure that this thing dies too. On top of that, it's weird. I feel like you want to be doing a lot of other things for 10 mana compared to this thing.
That's a fair point. Nightmare Dragonkin, 3 mana 4/2 dragon. Death Rattle, reduce the cost of the rightmost card in your hand by 2.
So rightmost, that'll be like the card coming off the top of your deck. So it'll be difficult to tutor where you get the discount for this
Mm-hmm.
thing. Um, that being said, mana cheat is always good and always seems to find a home. Yeah, I don't mind this card. It'll be interesting to see where this finds a home.
It's kind of underwhelming, but I can see it getting chosen as a Discover.
Yep.
Moving
If
on
you
to
do,
Shaman. Glowroot Lure, 6 mana, 6/6 taunt. Costs 1 less for each time you used your hero power this game. And let's take a look at Shaman's new hero power. 2 mana, Blessing of the Wind. Transform a friendly minion into a random one that costs more. Just like our other imbues, this will increment to transforming in a friendly minion that costs 2 more, 3 more, 4 more, 5 more, etc.
so I have heard one of the bug fixes in the new patch is when you like evolve effects only go up to 10 mana now, because I think the issue they had was there's that one 11 mana reborn minion for Death Knight. That, so if you, depending on how you evolved, you
So
could
you would
always,
have such a tiny pool.
yeah, so you'd always be able to tutor that 11 cost minion. So now they've capped it, so now you can only go up to minions that cost 10 mana. So there's a bit more variability on what you can, and you cannot now tutor out that 11 mana rush reborn. It was the 8/5, the chain guardian, I think
Oh,
it's called.
uh-huh.
And there's so many times I've noticed for with evolve effects is you my opponent would basically tutor the evolve to get that 11 cost minion to attack into one of my minions, kill it, reborn, attack into another minion and kill it. So that effect will no longer happen. It'll be capped at 10 mana minions.
Which seems entirely reasonable.
Yep. So that was a bug fix that came out with this new patch. No, well, bug fix if you want to call it a bug.
Going back to Glowroot lore, this seems like a pretty solid card.
Yeah, I think it'll be very easy to get this thing down to 0 mana and then play it and then use your imbued hero power to even evolve this thing into a 10 mana, like a 10 mana minion for effectively 0 cost.
Aspect's Embrace, 2 mana spell, restore 4 health, imbue your hero power.
Yeah, it's a solid card for 2 mana. It's doing a lot for 2 mana. You get the healing, you get the imbue. I think this will be a good card in imbue decks.
And you might be thinking, why would I need to restore 4 health on turn 2? I ended up just healing my minions with this.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I guess you could do that.
Typhoon, 10 mana nature spell. Each minion gets shuffled into a random player's deck. Reminds me of the priest spell that puts everything into a box and shuffles it, except now, instead of being put in a box, both players are getting cards.
Yeah, like and it's shuffling into players' decks, right? It's not like so like death rattles won't go off. It's a 10 mana clear the board, no questions asked, which I think that'll be good. We'll see what happens with the minions getting shuffled, but I do like the essentially a poof effect on the board.
Probably one of my favorite shaman cards. Plucky Podling, 1 mana 1/2. If this would transform into a minion, it transforms into one that costs 2 more.
Yeah, so depending on how many times you've imbued your hero power, this could be a very easy way for 1 mana to summon a 10 mana minion. I
So
think
it's
it'll
definitely
be
not a 1-drop, but will be like help your board snowball once you've imbued several times.
Yep.
Emerald Bounty, 2 mana spell, draw 2 cards. You cannot play them for 2 turns.
I don't know how I feel about that because 2 turns is a very long time to not be able to play a couple of cards that you might need to play. I think you could probably find a better draw option out there than this.
Spirits of the Forest, 5 mana nature spell, choose 1. Summon 3 2/3 wolves with taunt, or summon 2 4/3 falcons with Wind Fury.
I think both are decent options. Defensively, the 2/3 wolves would be pretty good to try and give you a turn to stabilize. The Wind Fury option I would probably choose less often.
Yeah, it's pretty decent defense. But Wind Fury without Rush seems, well, for something that only has 3 health,
If it
not
had
great.
Rush instead of Wind Fury, it would be a lot better, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how much we're going to see this. Too expensive? Yeah, seems a little slow.
Yep.
Beanstalk Brute, 5 mana 4/4 elemental, battle cry, give +4/+4 to the top 3 minions in your deck.
This almost has anti-synergy with your imbued hero power because I don't think that those buffs would transfer over if you end up evolving those minions. So it kind of clashes a little bit in my mind.
Yes, but The fact that it's giving +4/+4 to 3 minions means that you can play them and count on trading them and them surviving before you evolve
Oh,
them, which is something Shaman loves to do, trade and evolve.
that's true.
So it could go either way. We'll
Yep.
see how much it gets played. Onara, 9 mana, 5/11 legendary beast. At the end of your turn, play the top 3 cards from your deck.
I like that it says play and not summon, because then you get the battle cries and all that, depending on what is on the top of your deck. Uh, at the same time, though, it could be like 9 mana essentially do nothing for a turn. So it could, you definitely have to like build your deck around it to a certain degree.
Wait, so you get the battle cries?
Well, it says play, so I would assume that you play the card and then the battle cry would therefore trigger.
Oh, interesting. I didn't think you got the battle cry. Like I think you would play the card onto your board.
Yep. Well,
We'll
it
have
says
to see
play.
whether we get the battle cry on that or not.
Yeah, it says play a card, not summon a minion. So I would assume that the battle cry would trigger. If it doesn't trigger battle cries, then it's, I think, absolute garbage. And
Yeah, that's what I
and
that's what I was thinking. But yeah, we'll have to see. Has anyone seen this in play and know for sure? Yeah, we don't know yet. To be seen. Marithra, 6 mana, 4/4 legendary, battle cry, resurrect all different friendly minions that cost 8 or more.
yeah, I like it because with the evolve effect of your hero power, you're probably going to have a lot of really expensive minions die, and then this just resummons all those minions again. So I think this will be a really good card to include in an evolve shaman deck.
You know what's even better than that? Dream cards, bringing her back to your hand and playing her multiple times. Or
Oh.
Brewmaster, Youthful Brewmaster.
Yep.
I had someone play Marithra against me like 3 or 4 times. I could deal with it the first 2 times, and after that, I was toast.
Yeah, that's a very strong card.
It was disgusting. Living Garden, 3 mana, 2/3 elemental, battle cry, imbue your hero power, reduce the cost of a minion in your hand by 1.
Yeah, so the imbue effect would make this be an auto include in your imbue decks. It's very poorly statted otherwise. So if you're not doing like an imbue strategy, this is probably not going to get included.
Yeah, the fact that it does both imbue and cost reduction, this is an auto include for imbue.
Yep.
Moving on to Warrior, Broodkeeper, 2 mana, 2/3, battle cry. If you're holding a dragon, equip a 2/2 sword. Here is the sword. 2 mana, 2/2 weapon, Nightmare Slicer.
Yeah, there's a lot of dragons in this expansion, so the odds of you having a dragon in your hand is going to be pretty high. So this would be a pretty strong turn 2 play, summoning a 2/3 minion with, and then also a 2/2 sword. I think that'll definitely have some value.
Good tempo.
Yep.
Siphoning Growth, 1 mana spell. Destroy a friendly minion to gain 8 armor. This feels very Warlock, right? Because Warlock has the
Yeah.
destroy a friendly to restore 8 health or something like that.
Yep. It'll be interesting to see if this gets included. Like it doesn't really feel like a warrior card, like you said. So we'll
I
see,
think
but I'm
this will
not.
get auto included in Corrupted Clutch Warrior because it's a
Oh,
great
okay.
way to kill your clutch egg, get
Yes.
armor, and resummon whatever dragon is stored in your clutch.
That's a good point. Yeah, that would be a good use for this.
Succumb to Madness, 3 mana spell. Discover a friendly dragon that died this game. Resummon it.
So this will combo very well with the one of the dragons that we're going to talk about here in a second. So I think this will be a good card to include.
Yeah, definitely a good late game card. And here's that Clutch of Corruption we were discussing. 2 mana, 2 durability location. Choose a friendly dragon. Summon a 0/2 egg that hatches into a copy of it. Here's the horrible egg. 1 mana, 0/2, death rattle, summon another card.
Yeah, so this will work well with the legendary dragon that we'll discuss in a second. I came across it in a brawl match, and it got very annoying. But yeah, we'll talk about it in a second.
Not only is it great with Isandra, which yes, we will see in a moment, but there are a couple dragons that are pretty strong, like mid game, and this wouldn't feel bad summoning another copy. For example, there's a dragon that does 3 to all of your minions, and Death Rattle does 3 to all enemies. If you summon it with the egg, you don't have to do damage to your side of the board anymore, and you still get the Death Rattle to deal damage to the enemy minions. That could be a really great way of tutoring that out. Egg Basher, 4 mana, 3/5, Battlecry, deal 1 damage to a minion and give it +4 attack. The fact that they call it an Egg Basher, hint, hint, kind of tells us what they're intending with this card to damage.
Something to do with eggs, I think.
Like, here's the card and here's how you should play it.
Yep.
But yeah, another great way of tutoring out the dragons that you want to summon with your Corrupted Clutch. Tortola, Preserve Us, 10 mana, 1/30 beast, legendary. Taunt, Elusive. After this takes damage, gain 1 armor and give this minion +1 attack.
Yeah, the elusive part of this, it makes it very difficult to deal with, and depending on how many times this thing takes a hit, it can get a lot of attack very quickly. So it's very pesky to deal with unless you have a means to get rid of it.
Mm-hmm. And here's the dragon we've all been waiting for, Isandra, 7 mana, 8/5, legendary dragon. Taunt, Death Rattle. Summon a random dragon for each time Isandra has died this game.
Yeah, so I came across this in the brawl a couple times, and like the first Ysandra, the second Ysandra, you can kind of deal with, but after it's gotten summoned, 3, 4, 5 times, it basically generates a full board each time, and it's very hard to manage all those big boards.
Mm-hmm. And this can get resummoned quite a few times because you have the original Isandra, you have 2 durability from the first location, you have 2 durability from the second location, and then you have the 2 res spells. So that's already 7 Isandras.
Yep.
Afflicted Devastator, 4 mana, 6/6 dragon. Battlecry, deal 3 damage to all other friendlies. Death Rattle, deal 3 damage to all enemy minions.
Yeah, this is the one you brought up a moment ago. The battle cry. You could build your deck essentially to have it only happen once, and then once you resummon this minion, you don't have to deal with the battle cry anymore. But it still has that death rattle of dealing 3 damage to your opponents.
Yep, this is a good dragon. Dark Rider, 1 mana, 1/1 demon. Battlecry, if you're holding a dragon, discover a dragon with a dark gift.
Yeah, this is a good turn 1 play. Dark Gifts seem pretty good as well. Discover is always pretty good. I think this is a solid card.
Yep, that's a great one drop. There's a good chance you're going to have a dragon in your hand. Ominous Nightmares, a 1-mana shadow spell. Choose one, deal 1 damage to all minions, or give a damaged minion +2/+2.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of this. Like the one damage to all minions, that's basically nothing really when you think about it. And then the +2/+2 is only for on to damage minions, so that there could be situations where that is not necessarily playable either. So I'm not too sold on this card.
Yeah, kind of underwhelming. Moving on to Druid. Forest Lord Cenarius, 10 mana, 5/8 legendary. Choose thrice. Give your other minions +1/+3, or summon a 5/5 ancient with taunt. The ancient is a 5 mana, 5/5 with taunt. And then here is Growth of Dreams. Give your other minions +1/+3. And again, you get to choose 3 times.
Yeah, the thrice makes this card pretty flexible. I've seen it happen different ways where you give the buffs multiple times for for lethal, or I've seen it other times where you got the 5/5s with taunts. It's very difficult to deal with all that. It's I like this card.
It's very flexible.
Yep.
Grove Shaper, 5 mana, 3/6. After you cast a nature spell, summon a 2/2 treant with Death Rattle. Get a copy of that spell. Here's the treant, 1 mana, 2/2 treant of life. Death Rattle, get another card.
Yeah, so I came across it was actually Warshak. I played against Warshak in the brawl, and he played this card on turn 5 and then did like an innervate, and basically filled up his entire board with these two little death rattle minions. And then when I killed them, he got all of his cards back, and that was super annoying. While at the same time, we'll see with the imbue for Druid. We'll talk about that in a second, but like all the nature spells that you get back into your hand made it very annoying. And I think this is going to be a very strong deck.
Evergreen Stag, 6 mana, 6/7 beast. Elusive, lifesteal, taunt.
I don't see this seeing play. I think there's a lot of other stuff you could do with 6 mana.
Yeah, it feels a little slow.
Yep.
Ward of Earth, 5 mana nature spell, gain 5 armor, summon a random 5-drop, and give it taunt.
Yeah, the 5 armor is good. 5 drops tend to be pretty decent. So like getting a random 5 would not be too bad. And the taunt part too, like that seems pretty good. Like it's doing a lot for 5 mana. Plus it's a nature spell, which will
Mm-hmm.
be important in a second when we talk about the legendary minion.
Yeah, this is a
So
great defense card.
yeah.
Photosynthesis, 3 mana nature spell, restore 6 health, get 3 random druid spells.
So one thing I noticed about this card, it says random druid spells. It doesn't say nature spells. So you could end up getting non-nature spells out of this that you wouldn't want necessarily in your deck at the start of the game. So there's it's doing a lot for 3 mana here. I think there's going to be some value in this one.
Yeah, I mean, and if you get something arcane that's inexpensive, that could be helpful.
Yep.
Reforestation, 2 mana nature spell, choose one, draw a spell, or draw a minion. Hold this for 3 turns to do both.
Yeah, I like this card, especially for 2 mana. It reminds me of that other card that you let sit in your hand for 3 turns to make it evolve. Like, what's that card again? Where it draws like gain 10
Oh,
armor, draw
draw
2.
1, gain 5 armor, or
Yep.
wait 2 turns to bloom into draw 2, gain 10.
Yep. It reminds me of that card, and that card's a pretty decent one.
Horn of Plenty, 2 mana nature spell. Discover a nature spell. It costs 2 less.
So yeah, this being a nature spell is important. We'll find out in a second. And it's basically free because you cost 2 mana, and then you get another nature spell that's 2 less. So it's basically discover a nature spell for free.
It feels a lot like the Mage card that's discover a spell. It costs 2 less.
Yeah, what's that called again? Orb of something? I can't remember.
Dreambound Disciple, 3 mana 3/3, Battlecry, and Death Rattle. Your next hero power costs 0.
So yeah, we'll find out in a second why this is going to be important, because your hero power, once imbued, is going to be very strong.
Let's take a look at that new hero power. 2 mana, Blessing of the Golem. Summon a 1/1 plant golem. And just like our other imbue hero powers, that 1/1 is going to become larger each time you imbue. Feels a lot like Jade Druid, but with an unlimited supply of Jades.
Yeah, and it's important to note that there's no other cards in this expansion for Druid, like Druid cards, that imbue your hero power. So you're very reliant on playing nature spells to get that imbue going. So the combo I talked about earlier, the Grove, you play the Grove Shaper, play a bunch of nature spells, summon a bunch of little 2/2s with death rattles that give you more nature spells. That excuse me, that can snowball your hero power very quickly. And all of a sudden you have like 12/12s coming out of your hero power.
Do you know if there's a cap on this?
There's no cap.
That's gross. And then if they get put back into your hand, say for example, you summon a 15/15 plant golem and it gets put back in your hand, that would cost 10, right?
Yep, that's correct. I did that once to try and buy myself some time, and eventually got played again, and I felt the pain.
You think if there's a cap, it would be 30/30? That's an interesting idea.
Well, it would be capped by the number of nature spells that you're able to play. So say you have, um, say you've played 20 nature spells, and this action happens every 2 times, every second nature spell. So if you have 20 nature spells in your deck, that would imbue your hero power 10 times. Plus, if you get like Grove Shapers to generate more, like there is a cap based on the number of spells you're able to play.
And I've just been told that there was a cap on Jades, so it would make sense that they would cap golems the same way.
Oh, okay. I can say I ran into a 13/13 though, so those are definitely out there.
Hamul Rune Totem, 5 mana, 5/6 legendary. Start of game. If each spell in your deck is nature, imbue your hero power. Repeat this every 2 spells you cast.
Yep. So you have to run just nature spells in order for this start of game action to occur. So things like the ramp card from last set, the 3 mana ramp. What's it called again? New Heights.
New
You
Heights.
cannot. Yeah, you cannot include that in your deck if you want to get this imbue thing going. It's got to be strictly nature spells.
Symbiosis, a 1 mana nature spell. Discover a choose 1 card from another class.
Yeah, it's a nature spell, so it gets that hero power going. Beyond that, I'm not too sure what specifically you're looking for off of the discover option, but just to have this as a nature spell in your deck, that there is some value there if you're going down the imbue route.
The only reason I could see for playing that is, repeat this every 2 spells you cast for Hamul Rune Totem. It is 1 mana.
Yep. But yeah, other than that, like discover option or like the choose 1 cards from other classes, I can't think of any that you'd want to be searching for specifically. So I'm not too sure what value this card has other than the imbuing part of your hero power.
There is the new Mage spell that's a choose one, choose a Mage or Druid spell. So maybe you
Okay,
could
so
get another nature Druid spell off of that.
Yep.
But that's a huge if. Wow, we made it through all the classes already. Welcome back, everyone. We will now resume our complete card review, starting with all of our neutrals. Scorching Observer, 9 mana, 7/9 demon, rush, lifesteal.
I don't see this being included in decks, but coming off of a Kill Jaden, for example, or a Discover option, that might be pretty good.
Agreed. Seems like a good discover, not an include. Meadow Strider, 8 mana, 6/11 beast, taunt, death rattle. Put a Meadow Strider on the bottom of your deck. It costs 1.
I think there's some value there. It's infinite value. It's good statted. It's taunted. It would really be a shame if it ever got silenced, though.
I
I think
had
it'd be
one
getting.
frogged and it felt terrible.
Ugh.
I had played it with Big Beast and Bew, and it was buffed, and I was very excited to have it on board until it became a cute little 0/1.
Yeah, feels bad.
Feels super bad. Scavenging Flytrap, 7 mana, 2/7. After a minion dies, gain its attack.
7 mana, do nothing. I don't see it seeing play.
And it's not a type, so. The cutest little Spore Gnasher that ever was. 5 mana, 1/5. Poisonous, death rattle, deal 1 damage to a random enemy minion.
This like for 5 mana, this is pretty expensive for doing nothing because like it doesn't have rush. It'd be if it had rush, it'd be a different story. But you spend the 5 mana to summon this, and then it sits there for a turn before it could even do anything. So like, yeah, I don't see this being included.
It's a good discover if you can get it with a dark gift, and then it ostensibly clears 2 minions. Because the death rattle deal 1 to a random also has that poisonous.
Yep.
Ancient of Yore, 5 mana, 5/5, dormant, 2 turns. While dormant, gain 5 armor and draw a card at the end of your turn.
So this being an epic, I was only able to open one of these in the pre-release brawl, but I did include that one of in the deck that I got my 6 wins with in the brawl a couple times, and it is, in my opinion, a very good card. You spend 5 mana, you draw 2 cards, you gain 10 armor, and at the end of it, you get a 5/5. I found it to be a really solid card.
Yeah, I mean, even draw 2 with a body would be good, but the fact that you get that armor makes it even better.
Yep, it was so good.
I'm still mad about this card. Mother Duck, 4 mana, 2/3 beast, battle cry, summon 3 1/1 ducklings with rush. These poor little ducklings are 1 mana, 1/1 beasts with rush. Who thought this was okay?
Look at the smile on his face.
I know.
You're just gonna rush that little thing into another minion. It's gonna die right away. It didn't even have a chance at life.
I know. It's so sad. Ugh. I got peer pressured into playing this, and I felt really bad about it. Just throwing that out there. Ugh. Curious Cumulus. 4 mana, 3/5 elemental. At the end of your turn, give your hero Divine Shield.
This feels like it might be a card to include in an elemental deck, but other than that, I can't really see it seeing much play.
Yeah, it is adorable though. Look at this little dragon coming out of the cumulonimbus.
Aw, that's cute.
Dream Rager, 3 mana, 5/1, elusive. I mean, we have a
I've yet,
history of not played Ragers, and this seems like one of them.
yep, I've never played a Rager in my entire life playing Hearthstone.
Daydreaming Pixie, 2 mana, 0/4. At the end of your turn, get a random nature spell.
There are a lot of nature spells out there that could be good, could not be good. Um, this might be a card that you want to include in your nature druid deck just to get some extra nature spells. But other than that, I can't see any of the decks playing this.
Critter Caretaker, 1 mana, 2/2. At the end of your turn, restore 3 health to both heroes.
I'm curious about this one because it's a 1 mana 2/2. Like it's a pretty good turn one play, all things considered. Um, but the health restoration, like it's a weird card to. I don't
It
know how to.
feels like it could be nice for Warlock, especially tapping toward the beginning of the game. You're not probably healing your opponent, but you are healing yourself.
Yep.
I could also see an argument for this in Wild for some kind of Shadow Priest.
Yeah, but Shadow Priest and Wild, like they're so focused on dealing damage to their opponent. Like I don't know if they would even want to play this because it gives your opponent 3 health.
Right, but if your next healing effect does damage instead, then you're doing
Oh,
3 damage to your opponent.
that's a good point.
And there
Well,
are
then,
other priest cards that we've seen in the past that deal damage to both enemies. So this
y-
could be one of those like sneaky OTKs, or not OTK, sneaky game ender, where,
yep.
you know, the enemy thinks they're okay, and then all of a sudden you play a bunch of shadow cards, and then this at the end. It could find a home, maybe.
Yeah, I can see that.
Dreambound Raptor, 1 mana, 2/1 beast. After you play a minion, give it a random bonus effect.
Yeah, this is interesting too. Like it would be a good turn one play to get something on the board, and you kind of have to respond to it. Otherwise, it'll just provide more and more value to your opponent with each respective minion being played.
Yeah, I think I might have played this in Aggro Rogue, and the fact that it can give, you know, random bonus effects, including Reborn, is just very helpful. Briar Spawn Drake, 10 mana, 12/7 dragon. At the end of your turn, attack a random enemy minion. Excess damage hits the enemy hero.
Pretty expensive for what you're getting out of it.
Yeah, I tried to play this and I could just never get it on board.
Yep.
Tormented Dreadwing, 5 mana, 5/5 dragon. Death Rattle, draw 2 dragons, reduce their cost by 1.
Yeah, it's draw two with a body. Like that could see play.
Especially with the cost reduction, that helps too.
Yep. Yeah, I don't mind it.
Illusory Greenwing, 4 mana, 4/5 dragon. Taunt, Death Rattle. Shuffle 2 4/5 dragons with Taunt into your deck. They are summoned when drawn. Here's the illusion: 4 mana, 4/5 dragon, summon withdrawn, Taunt.
Yeah, I saw this being played in the Dragon Paladin decks. I think that'll find a home in those decks for sure.
Yeah, it's a very strong 4-drop. Fae Trickster, 3 mana, 2/4 dragon. Death Rattle, draw a spell that costs 5 or more.
Yeah, this will be a good card for the Dragon Paladin too because it'll draw your 7 mana spell, and you have that weapon that draws your 8 mana minion. So there's ways of tutoring your 7 mana spell and your big minion out to get them both in hand. Because then when you play your minion, it turns that spell into an aura. So I could see this finding a home in Dragon Paladin, but beyond that, I'm not too convinced.
It could be good in other dragon decks for drawing Shaladrisil.
Oh, that's right. Yes, I forgot about that card.
Animated Moonwell, 3 mana, 1/4 elemental. After you cast a spell, gain attack equal to its cost.
Yeah, this would be another good card to include in an elemental deck. It would definitely need to be responded to, otherwise its attack could just snowball out of control.
Peddler, 2 mana, 1/4 dragon. At the end of your turn, give another random friendly dragon +1/+1.
That's it's a solid 2-drop. It's a 2 mana 1/4, and it keeps buffing up whatever other dragon you have on your board. Like, this could be a decent card.
It reminds me a lot of the priest minion that gives another random minion 1/1 at the end of the board, but this is dependent upon the friendly being a dragon.
Yep. So probably not as good as that other minion, but
Not
still.
as good as the other minion.
Yep.
Twisted Treant, 2 mana, 2/2, Death Rattle. Give a random minion in each player's hand -2 attack.
Yeah, that you'd have to hit something pretty specific in the opposing player's hand for that to be of value.
Yeah.
I don't think you include this in a deck.
Tranquil Treant, 2 mana, 2/2, Death Rattle. Both players gain an empty mana crystal.
Yeah, if you're a deck that's ramp friendly, like if you have a lot of high cost stuff that you want to get to, like there could be some value in you ramping faster than your opponent ramping.
But you're ramping both of you.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Like if you want to, if your deck is geared towards getting to your high end stuff more so than your opponent, then there might be value there.
Yeah. And Archie pointed out you want Tranquil Treant to die on your opponent's turn, so that your empty mana crystal is then filled on your next turn.
Oh, that's interesting. So then your opponent would probably want to wait for it to be your turn.
Yeah, so no one's going to want to kill it. It's just going to sit there.
It's like a game of chicken.
Gnawing Greenfin, a 1 mana 1/1 Murloc. Battle Cry, get a random Murloc.
Poor Grunty. Good, just got nerfed with this card again.
This card art reminds me of like why you're not allowed to have a ferret as a pet. Imagine if that tree branch were a couch.
Oh yeah.
Envoy of the Glade, 4 mana 3/6, Battle Cry. Transform all neutral cards in your deck into random druid cards.
I don't know what you're trying to accomplish with this.
I mean, if this had come earlier, people would have loved to get rid of bombs. Are plagues going to be a thing still, or are those all rotating out?
They're all rotating out.
So, I mean, like, you can't transform bombs. You can't transform plagues. What are you transforming?
Yeah, I don't know.
Plagues aren't neutral, are they not?
Well, they're
are
rotating out.
plagues Death Knight cards? Are bombs warrior cards? Like, what could this transform? Just neutrals that you included? But if you included them, why do you not want them anymore?
Yeah, it's like, yeah, you're messing with your own game plan at that
Yeah.
point.
Feels kind of sus.
Yep.
Hopeful Dryad. Like low-key OP, 3 mana, 3/3, Battlecry, get a random dream card. And just to refresh everyone's memory, dream cards include Nightmare, 0 mana, give a minion +4/+4 at the start of your next turn, destroy it. HysteriA Awakens, deal 5 damage to all minions except HysteriA. Laughing Sister, 2 mana, 3/5 elusive. Emerald Drake, 4 mana, 7/6 dragon. Dream, 1 mana nature spell, return an enemy minion to your opponent's hand.
Yeah, I saw this a lot in the brawl. I think it'll be a good card to include. It kind of depends on what you're trying to do as a deck, but like this is a solid card that could
It's a
find home
solid
for
3
sure.
drop, and even better as a discover. But I mean, I can see decks just including it because it's good.
Yep.
Good tempo. Blood Thistle Illusionist, 3 mana, 2/4 demon, Battlecry. Summon a copy of this. 1 secretly dies when it takes damage. Reminds me of Barov.
Oh, not Barov, the lady.
Oh yeah, not Barov. What's her name?
Oh, what's her name again? But yeah, I know who you're talking about.
From Scholomance.
Yep. Oh, what was her name?
Help us out, chat. Who is that?
It was something of though. Again, I don't know. But yeah, it's a decent card. Like your opponent won't know which one's the copy that takes damage or dies. It's 3 mana, couple of 2/4s. Like it's decent. I've seen it in the brawl.
And it could be good with Evolve Shaman because you know which one secretly dies, and so that's the one that you could evolve.
Yep.
Jandis Barov, thank you.
Barov, yep. Also, it was Barov, yeah, because there's Lord Barov as well for Warrior.
Oh, right, there's more than one Barov. Jandis Barov. One of what I think is the best cards in the set. Nightmare Lord Savjz, 4 mana, 4/4 legendary demon. Battlecry, discover a minion from your deck. Give it a dark gift.
Yeah, this card's putting in the work. Like it's a 4 mana 4/4. Discovers a card, so you get to choose, and then draw it from your deck and give it a dark gift. Yeah, this is a 5-star card.
This is power creep for real.
Yep.
Bark Shield Sentinel, 2 mana, 2/2. Taunt. After you use your hero power, gain 2 health.
I think this is. I don't mind this card. Like it could, in theory, snowball pretty quick. Every time you use your hero power, you gain health on this thing. So,
One of
but
those pesky littles that's difficult to remove.
yep.
We had a couple cards like this in previous sets, like Tournament of Champions, where you would use your Inspire. You would use your hero power and it would Inspire gain health. It was kind of reminiscent of those vibes. Slumbering Sprite, 1 mana, 3/3, starts dormant. After you use your hero power, this awakens.
Yeah, I don't mind this one. Like it's you play this on 1 here. Like even if you hero power on 2, then you get a 3/3 on turn 2. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's not too bad. If you have like an aggro deck, it could probably find a home there.
Like aggro Demon Hunter.
Yep. Oh yeah, Demon Hunter with the
Flutterwing
1.
Guardian, 4 mana, 4/4, taunt, divine shield, battle cry, imbue your hero power.
Yeah, that's another one that's putting in a lot of work for what you're getting. 4 mana 4/4, taunt, divine shield, and a battle cry. Like it's doing a lot.
It is. This seems like an auto include for any imbue decks. Resplendent Dreamweaver, 4 mana, 5/4, Battlecry. If you've imbued your hero power twice, deal 5 damage to a minion.
Yeah, if you're running an imbue deck, like this is probably going to be an auto include. Like it's deal 5 damage, put a 5/4 on board, imbue your hero power. Or no, it doesn't imbue. It's just the 5 damage. But yeah, it's pretty good.
By the time you draw this, you probably will have imbued twice.
Oh, but yeah, by turn 4, 100% you've imbued twice.
And it's nice that it's not dependent upon having another card type in your hand, like some dragons that we've seen that do damage if you're holding another dragon. This is just, have you imbued twice?
Yep.
Alliestrasza, 7 mana nature spell, legendary. Get all 5 dream cards. If you've played a higher cost card while holding this, corrupt them. Let's take a look at the corrupted versions of the dream cards. Corrupted Laughing Sister, 2 mana, 6/10, elusive. Your hero is elusive. Corrupted Awakening, deal 5 damage to all enemies, especially HysteriA. So now this can go face as well.
So when it says especially HysteriA, that means that it actually kills HysteriA. So if HysteriA's on the board, that kills it.
Even if HysteriA has more than 5 health left?
Yep. Yeah, it's an automatic kill for HysteriA.
Oh, wow. Corrupted Drake, 4 mana, 14/12 dragon. Whew.
It's a big boy.
Corrupted Dream, 0 mana spell. Shuffle a minion into its owner's deck. So now instead of putting it back in their hand, they have to draw it again. 0 mana shadow spell, Corrupted Nightmare. Give a minion +5/+5 and immune this turn. So now not only does it not die at the beginning of the next turn, but it gains immunity. Like, corrupting this, pretty good. And I've seen people discussing Rogue being able to just corrupt this early with the Sandbox Pirate.
And the +5/+5, that's permanent too. So that stays around for, even though the second part, the immune, it's immune for just the turn, but the +5/+5 is permanent. So this is actually a good card. So like I've used this to finish off opponents. So between the +5/+5 and then like the 5 damage, that's an extra 10 damage that you could potentially send to your opponent's face if you have a minion that's ready to go face as well.
Yeah, this is legendary for a reason.
Yep. Yeah, and when I was playing the Blood DK deck during the brawl, it was very easy to get this corrupted.
Because
Well, I had the 8 mana minion that clears the board. I had a couple of those guys. I played what else did I play in that deck? I played HysteriA. So there was times. Oh, the other thing too. I should note with HysteriA or with a 9 mana card. I'm just looking up the names here for.
yeah, so HysteriA the Dreamer, the new HysteriA, is 9 mana, 4/12 dragon. Battlecry, add 1 of each dream card to your hand.
Yep, and with Death Knight, the Exarch Malakar or Maladar card, the one that's your next card played this turn costs corpses instead of mana. So what I have done during the brawl was I play Exarch on 6, and then I also play HysteriA on 6 because I have the nine corpses, and that HysteriA, even though it costs corpses instead of mana, still corrupts.
Oh, that still works.
It still works, yeah.
Wow.
So I'd play Exarch and HysteriA on 6, and then I would play Slysssa on 7. That's already corrupted. Like
Wait, this is HysteriA the Dreamer. This is not the new HysteriA.
Yeah,
One
the
moment.
new one.
Here's the new
Emerald.
HysteriA. Emerald Aspect, 9 mana, 4/12 dragon. Start of game, increase both players' maximum mana by 5. Battlecry, gain 3 mana crystals. That's even better with Maladar.
Yeah, so
Because
it was
now you're
such a
gaining through
powerful.
mana crystals on 6.
Yeah, it was so powerful. So like turn 6, I play Maladar into HysteriA, and then turn 7, I play Slysssa, and by turn 7, I actually have 10 mana, so I could play Slysssa and the board clear on the same turn. Like it was so strong
That's
during the brawl.
disgusting.
Yep.
I'm gonna have to try that. uh Malorn the Waywatcher, 8 mana, 8/6 beast, legendary. Battlecry, discover a legendary wild god. If you've imbued your hero power 4 times, set its cost to 1. Here are the wild gods. Onara, which is the legendary beast that plays the top 3 cards of your deck at the end of your turn. Forest Lord Cenarius, which was our Druid legendary, choose thrice. Omen, which was our Demon Hunter, Demon Beast, Rush, Wind Fury, Death Rattle. Asina, which was our new Mage legendary with Battlecry. If 20 friendlies have died, deal 20. Goldrin, which is our new Beast Lego that deals double damage with beasts. Tortola, which was our new Warrior legendary, the 130 elusive taunt. Shaman, which was the new legendary rogue card that fills your hand with copies of cards from your opponent's deck that cost 3 less. Correct me if I'm wrong. Ursul was the new legendary for Paladin that casts the highest cost spell from your hand as an aura the last 3 turns. And Agamagan was the new Warlock legendary. Next card you play costs opponent's health instead of mana. Aviana, new Priest legendary, the 7/11 lunar cycle that causes cards to cost 1 this game after the full moon has risen. Ursak, which was the new Death Knight legendary. Yep, Battlecry attack all other minions, res any killed on death rattle. Pretty sure I got most of those.
Yeah,
but those are
right.
the new old gods. So you have the chance to discover one of those. And if you've imbued 4 times, it will only cost 1. So you could play this plus the Lego on 9 on the same turn.
It's a very strong turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for like any imbue deck, this is an auto include.
Yeah. Really good late game card. Gnarlex, Herald of the Flights, 7 mana, 7/7 legendary. Your dragons cost 1. Notice it's not a battle cry, and it's an aura.
Yeah, this would be a good one for like. My first thought is Dragon Paladin. I haven't come across any other dragon decks in particular that I can think of where this.
Except for Dragon Warrior.
Oh, Dragon Warrior. Yes, that one. That would be a good one.
I don't know if this is going to make it into that cut, though.
Yeah, it'd be tough.
Honestly, I feel like there's so many ways that Paladin can already tutor out dragons. I don't know if this is going to find a slot in Dragon Paladin either.
Yeah, you might be right. Especially with like all the portals that are coming out of your deck. Like you don't really have to worry about getting dragons on the board for 1 mana.
Yeah. Treacherous Tormentor, 4 mana, 5/4 demon. Battlecry, discover a legendary minion with a dark gift.
Yep. Dark Gift's good. Legendary Minion's good. This is a like 4 mana 5/4, so it's decently statted. Yeah, I like this card.
I can see this being included in a Warlock deck. There are so many legendary minions that you're not going to want, though. So even if they do have a dark gift, is that really something that you want to use a card slot for?
Well, do the wild gods, are those included in this discover option?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, the wild gods are legendaries.
Yep.
But are they in that pool? Because we know that with some other Discover cards, the pool has been limited.
Yeah, like
It's
Titans
quite
aren't included.
possible.
Yeah, I think with like rotation, there's going to be so many fewer legendary cards in the pool. I think the odds of you discovering a wild god, which is probably pretty good.
That's true. Bitter Bloom Knight, 2 mana, 2/3, battle cry, imbue your hero power.
Yeah, this will be an inclusion in imbue decks for sure.
Yeah, auto include for imbue. And is it just me, or does this look like an angry watermelon?
Yeah,
Like,
you're
what
right.
is this? I don't know, but now I want barbecue. Thanks, Hearthstone.
Yeah.
Creature of Madness, 2 mana, 1/2, battle cry, discover a 3-drop with a dark gift.
Yeah, at first glance when I first looked at this card, I wasn't convinced, and then like I realized, okay, these dark gifts are actually really good, and the curve too on this one, like going from a 2-drop into a 3-drop. I'm probably gonna try another Death Knight Brawl run and have this in because it's honestly a pretty good corpse generation card on top of that because like this is a corpse and then the card it generates will be a corpse.
And then if
Like
you
I
get
think
the
we
dark gift that gives it reborn, that's another
yep
corpse.
yep I'm
Yeah,
gonna give it a go.
pretty spicy. Ysera, Emerald Aspect, 9 mana, 4/12 dragon. Start of game, increase both players' maximum mana by 5. Battle cry, gain 3 mana crystals. And I just want to point out, for those of you who have not played with Ysera yet, those 3 mana crystals are not empty.
Yeah. So yeah, when I was doing my Death Knight runs, Exarch Maladar for 6 mana into this on turn 6. You have three mana crystals left over that you could play something else, like another minion or something like that. And then your next turn 7, you're up to 10 mana already. Like to be able to ramp as a Death Knight, like it's such like an amazing combination of two cards. Plus on turn 6 you have a 4/12 and what's Maladar, a 5/5 on board.
Uh-huh.
Yep, such a strong card.
Well, and we were just talking about earlier, like how to ramp as a druid without being able to use non-nature spells. If you want to use Hamul, this is an option.
Yep.
That is all of the new cards from Emerald Dream. What are your thoughts? What class are you most excited to play? Or what card is speaking to you the most?
So I've been playing a lot of the Death Knight with the leeches, and I think that's going to be very strong. I really want to give Demon Hunter a go with this Death Rattle thing with the Starship piece. I think that's gonna have some value there. Um, I haven't given Paladin a try yet, but I think Dragon Paladin's gonna be pretty good with all those portals coming into play. One thing I did notice when I was playing Death Knight in the Brawl, I was using the 8 hands card, the one that destroys all cards in the deck except for 8. That was actually not a good thing against Paladin because then their odds of drawing those portals increases so dramatically, and they basically have a full board every turn. So that was a pain in the butt.
8 hands is the card that, right, destroys everything except for the top.
The most expensive 8 cards. So that's
Most expensive
destroy
8
everything.
cards. Does that destroy the shuffled portals too?
Yep. So I
Those
did.
count as cards.
Yeah, so in one game I did do that because they had shuffled a bunch of portals in, and it destroyed all the portals. But then it reduced the size of their deck so much that every time they shuffled a couple portals in from their hero power, the odds of the portals coming right back the next turn were just it became astronomical near the end.
Was that difficult for you to clear though?
Yeah, it was tough to clear the dragons after a while. Like if I did end up winning the game, but it became very difficult.
Because on the one hand, it seems good thinning out their deck, but on the other hand, if all of their summoning is 10-drop dragons, that could feel very oppressive.
Yep. There was one game I played against an asteroid shaman, and they basically conceded right then and there as soon as I played 8 hands because they had like 20
Yeah, getting rid
asteroids
of all the
shuffled into
asteroids,
it.
that's
Oh,
hilarious.
yeah, they just quit right there.
That's anti-incendious too.
Yep.
That's fantastic. Uh, yeah, I'm also excited about Leech Death Knight. Mage, Wisp Mage felt very strong. And, I'm not usually a priest player, but the priest hero power is really compelling and was a lot of fun to play. I don't know how competitive it will be, but for control priest enjoyers, it just has all that resource generation, which makes every game feel slightly different.
Yeah, I'm very excited to play this set. It should be a lot of fun next week.
Me too. Thank you so much, everyone, for hanging out today for the entire card review with our special guest star, Brett, aka Touchdown, aka The Toucher. And I'm going to take a little break to refill liquids, and then I'll be back and we'll play more viewer request Brawlziums. Thank you so much, Brett, for coming on to do another card review.
Thank you for having me.
All right, everyone, see you soon. Hang around.
Bye-bye.
You can earn more pack drops, and we'll have more Brawlzium.